no good arguing. My mind is made up. I am going to Mallorca.
But you went there for your last holiday. You've got the whole world to choose from, and you choose Mallorca. Well, why not go to America? Take a train ride across the Rockies.
I did, twice. I've been everywhere, but ever since my heart attack, all I need to do is lie on the beach and look at the sea. Thank you, darling.
Programmed greeting 174. Goodbye, Master. Enjoy your vacation.
Thank you, Mrs. Seven.
Bye, Daddy.
Bye, darling.
Don't get too brown. Bring me back a mascot.
Hang on, there's the phone.
Just remembered on my way home that today you go on holiday. So stop in the picture box to call and say goodbye. Have a happy time.
Thank you, Mr. Lynn.
Sorry, no more token for the slot. Goodbye.
Mallorca tape, please, Mr. Seven. Ah, Mallorca. Sun, sea breezes, peace and quiet. Ultraviolet 3.
When can I go, Mummy?
Well, you can't use the hallucinatory devices until you're 8. So next year you'll be able to go anywhere you like.
Bye-bye, darlings. Bye-bye. See you all in a week.
Bye.
Switch on.
Does it really seem real? I mean, does 6 hours really seem like a week by the sea?
Yes. And your father needs the rest. It'll seem to him just as if he's there on the beach. Minutes like hours, hours like days of perfect peace.
Has Dad gone yet?
You just missed it. He's on his way. Look at his face.
No, God help me!
Darling.
Switch off.
Our husband is dead.
Hello and welcome to the show. Now, this week is not just Whodunnit, but Where Are We? Well, that was a look at Neasden in the year 2076. And as you can see, Women's Lib has been successfully checked. 2 wives to 1 husband. But before anyone can complain, let me introduce this week's guest panel and welcome our first guest, voted Male Personality of the Year and winner of the TV Times Award for Don't Ask Me, but We Will, Dr. Magnus Pike. How do you do? How do you do? And who better equipped to deal with problems of the future than our next guest? We welcome from the United States the star of the new TV series Bionic Woman, Miss Lindsay Wagner. And making a welcome return, my favorite bloodhound, Patrick Mower. We also have this week's winner of our TV Times Whodunnit competition, Mr. Paul Henderson from Darlington, who is 6. Paul is, in fact, only 16 and a half years of age. The disadvantage of 2076 is that the world is so crowded there's no room left. Hence, an artificial holiday which has resulted in the death of Mr. Wendell, who, by the way, was 140 years old last Wednesday, thanks to the secret of longevity being discovered. For the record, his #1 wife, Jade, is 101. Amber is barely 92. So, with my appearance, I'm obviously well over 300. Anagram, the eldest son, is 70, as is Poe, his brother, a pair of non-identical twins. I do hope that you can remember all that, can you? Anagram was so called because he was born when the late Mr. Wendell was doing the Times crossword. But what he was doing when Poe was born, I hesitate to hazard a guess. Crystal, the daughter, is only 7. I wonder what the age of consent is. And the robot has 2,500 miles on the clock. But who killed Mr. Wendell is tonight's puzzler. And who's going to be the detective? Well, that's another surprise. So let's go back to the plot and find out.
It's his heart. It stopped. Do something. Mr. Seven, you do something.
Not program.
7, go remote. What the hell are you doing? I'm going to reroute 7's life force through Father. It's our only hope. Seven, put your hand on Mr. Wendell's heart.
No, call the resuscitation centre. If his brain's not dead, you'll destroy him.
There's no time.
Daddy?
Anagram, you've saved his life.
Well, I haven't studied electronics for 50 years for nothing.
Oh, it was horrible. It jumped on me. I can still see it. I can still hear it roar.
What was it?
This label has been stuck on. No wonder he had a heart attack. That's a thrill tape. He's been savaged by a tiger.
It was you. You did it.
Me? Darling, I'm your wife.
Married to me when you were 21. Now you're 101. That's 80 years.
80 glorious years. Only last week at our plutonium wedding anniversary, you told me how much you loved me.
She does love you. And so do I. And so do we all. Don't we?
Yes.
Enough program.
Who'd want to kill you, Dad?
Someone put that road tape in there. A thriller tape only sold on the black market and guaranteed to give me a heart attack. And I'm going to find out who did it.
But who would benefit? Who would want you dead?
Mr. Lim would like him dead.
Why?
Because of what Dad says in his news topics about the regime. Don't forget that Lim is a member of the Circle of Power.
Only a minor official.
Why do you think he was billeted here? You think it was chance? Think they'd picked us out of a hat? It was to eliminate Father.
Mr. Seven, why do you think someone tried to kill Daddy?
Extrapolate possibilities. Law states all inheritance through male heirs, sons, anagram and Poe. In event of death of male heirs, wives Jade and Amber inherit all. In event of wives' death, all goes to next of kin, Crystal. Conclusion, Crystal would have to kill whole family to inherit. Extrapolation, and...
Well, therefore it must be political. And it's Lim.
Lim wouldn't risk being caught in this room changing tapes.
Usually he stays in his room. Mr. Seven takes his meals up.
Now, let's think back. We didn't discuss where Wendell was going until dinner last night. And then Mr. Lim was in his room entertaining a friend.
Yes. And I recognized him. Mr. Sung, one of their top men in electronics.
Are you sure he's a senior man?
I'm absolutely certain. I attended a lecture he gave only some 42 years ago. Now, if Lim's such a minor official, what's he doing hobnobbing with a top brass?
And what's that got to do with giving me a heart attack?
But don't you see? Lim isn't a minor official at all. He's been planted here to get rid of you. Mr. Seven serves dinner. Mr. Sung goes through his memory bank and finds out that you're planning to use the Mallorca tape. Lim switches the tape, and bingo.
Oh, excuse me. I've just had a nice day in Monte Carlo with this gambling tape. But as I'm £10,000 down, I'm glad it's just an illusion. Now, to recap the plot. The year is 2076. The world is overcrowded, so Mr. Wendell elects to go on an illusory holiday listening to a tape recorder. But someone has switched the tapes and inserted a tiger's roar. Now, his fear of animals has caused his weak heart to stop, technically murder. But thanks to the life force put through him by the robot manservant under the guidance of his son, Anagram, he is alive and well and asking the questions. Of course, the life force treatment could have finished him off for good. Now, did Anagram plan that? Or Poe, his brother? Or did his wives, Jade and Amber, switch the tapes? Must be somewhat of a bore sharing one man for 100 years or more, I think. Now, has Mr. Seven, the robot, got a brain of his own? Was it Mr. Lim, the Chinese diplomat? Or his as yet unseen friend, electronics expert Mr. Sung? And surely it wasn't the angelic young Crystal, Wendell's daughter. As we go back to the plot, Mr. Wendell is trying to unmask his would-be murderer.
Mr. Seven would remember if he'd been questioned.
First, let's see if Mr. Seven remembers our conversation at dinner last night. Let's see if he overheard where you decided to go. If he did, Lim could have found out.
Sung could have reprogrammed him to forget.
Mr. Seven, will you tell me what happened during dinner last night and what you overheard?
Yes, Miss Crystal. I served the first course at exactly 21:05. Mr. Wendell particularly asked for avocado stuffed with Mediterranean prawns.
Oh, 1976 was a wonderful year for claret. I'm afraid this is the last bottle of Lafitte we shall see.
100 years old. You were only 40 then, Daddy.
Mm-hmm.
What was it like then? I mean, before the Chinese came?
Well, we had wars and governments falling and inflations.
What's that?
Well, eventually it meant that money was worth absolutely nothing at all. £100 for a loaf of bread. But at least in those days we could travel. Now, because we can all live for hundreds of years, we've got billions of people.
We can have all the travel we want without leaving the house, because there's no room if we do. That's what I call progress.
It is 21:05. Shall I serve the avocado and prawn?
Yes, please, Mr. Seven. We're all starving.
The avocado, sir.
Where will you go for your holiday, Daddy?
Somewhere hot. Since the ice caps changed, I find England's much too cold.
Iceland's hot.
I taped myself there once. It was very boring. And the esquires just lay around in the sun with no clothes on at all. It really wasn't very nice.
Now, Jade, you know I don't like you going to places like that.
It was a mistake. I meant to go to Ireland, but I misread the tape.
What's the main course?
Duck à l'orange, new potatoes, broccoli, or haddock, Monte Carlo.
Haddock.
Duck, please. No potatoes, I'm slimming.
Haddock.
So where are you going, Father? You really do need a rest.
Yes, I know. It's a pity we can only use the travel machine once every 6 months. Duck.
A sea voyage.
I get seasick. You know the sea tapes include a storm for variety.
No, thanks, I'm full.
Otherwise, they're just boring. Is this duck or haddock?
Duck, but it has been in the same box as the haddock pill.
Well, don't let that happen again, Mr. Seven. Otherwise, you will be replaced by Mr. Eight.
Yes, sir.
Now, what about Mallorca? You liked it when you were there before.
You went there last year.
Well, I don't
Oh,
know.
it's nice and peaceful and restful.
All right. I hope we've still got the tapes.
Will you excuse me a moment?
Yes?
I've just remembered I must make a picture call to John.
Yes, of course.
I drew a lucky museum ticket for next week.
Excuse the interruption, but if Mr. Seven is free to serve dinner, my guest and I are hungry.
So I went up to Mr. Lim's room.
You move, Mr. Lim, and think carefully.
Ah, Mr. Seven. This is a colleague of mine, Mr. Song.
At your service, sir.
What gastronomic delight have you in store for us?
On the Chinese menu, I have portions of 69, 21, 17, and 13.
And what is that?
Haddock, Monte Carlo, or duck à l'orange, new potatoes and broccoli.
Haddock. Very good.
Haddock.
2 haddock. Will you be requiring me further, sir?
Please check the time machine.
At the 4th peep, it will be exactly 21:09.
Thank you. That is all. Good night.
Check. Mate.
And so I left the room and returned to the dispensary to await your instructions. When you rang, I brought in the banana flan.
Yes. Stop. Anagram, your electronics brain. Can Mr. Seven be reprogrammed to forget?
Yes, he could.
How long would it take?
Well, about 10 minutes if performed by an expert.
And can you alter his time sequence?
Yes, you could do that at the same time. It's... Ah, still here. I mean, not on your holiday?
No, Mr. Lim, I'm lucky to be alive. Someone substituted a tape that gave me a heart attack. But thanks to my son, Anagram, I'm still alive.
I'm delighted. By the way, Mr. Anagram, I needed some sticky label yesterday afternoon to readdress a letter, and took the liberty of going to your fascinating electronic workroom. I borrowed this. I hope you don't mind.
So that's where it disappeared to.
You mean that's yours?
Yes. I was putting your antique record collection on tape. The Bugs, the Beatles, or whatever they were called. I bought this to write the titles on. Well, it was meant to be a birthday surprise.
Oh, darling.
Oh, surely you don't think I was trying
Trying to
kill...
murder me? No. But I do know whose hand substituted that tape. Somebody who knew about my fear of animals. Somebody who knew I would say, Mr. Seven, Mallorca tape, please. And when I said switch on, I knew perfectly.
No, he killed himself is not the answer. Mr. Wendell lived on borrowed time just long enough for you to see the clues to identify the person or persons who arranged his death. There, I've actually given you a clue. So now let's ask the panel what flashbacks they would like to see. Starting off with you, Magnus. What would you like to see again?
I like to see that bit where they take the back of his head off and turn him on, and then put the back of his head back on again.
Yes, I thought you might. That was inevitable, wasn't it? Lindsay, what would you like to see again?
I would like to see when Anagram came in and said, has Dad gone yet?
Right. Patrick?
I'd like to see the bit where 70-year-old Poe asks to be excused to go and... He's won a raffle or something. He's won some sort of ticket.
That's right, to go to the museum. Yeah. Paul?
Well, I'd like to see where Mr. Seven comes in to serve Mr. Lim and Mr. Sung.
Right, sure. Yes, that was a good question, Pat. You wished you'd asked that. All right. Well, while we're looking for those, let's have some questions. Start off. Magnus. Question, please.
Yes. Where's Mr. Poe? Can I ask a question, Mr. Poe?
Mr. Poe, there, on the left.
Are you very fond of your brother?
Yes.
Very fond of him?
Yes, indeed.
Now, in 100 years, are you very fond of your mothers?
Well, I only actually have one mother.
Oh, yes. What's your... I mean, I'm probing. If you don't mind my doing this...
No, probe away.
You're fond of her in a nice way, are you?
Oh, yes.
Yeah. What about your sister? Do you like her, too?
Yes.
Very much?
Yes.
Oh, very much?
Very much indeed, yes.
Yes, I see. Mm-hmm.
Thank you.
That's all I can ask you now.
No, you've got plenty of time later on.
I see.
That'll do for
Thank you very
starters.
much.
Lindsay, we've got any questions you'd like to ask?
Yes, I would like to speak with the wives.
Right.
First of all, I noticed that you, Amber, were very eager to come to the aid of Jade. Oh, pardon the pun. And when he said you killed her, and she said, no, you love her. Do you two find yourself being in agreement most of the time when someone's accusing one of the two of you?
It is politics.
Simply, you can't stand each other, really.
It varies. Mainly we can't stand each other, wouldn't you say?
I would say.
Okay, so was your support of her in that moment in earnest, or was that strictly political?
Oh, entirely in earnest. One must keep the peace.
You believe
our
that?
role.
You
It's
believe
our
she
role to
didn't do
keep the
it?
peace.
Do you believe she didn't do it?
I believe entirely she didn't do it.
Okay, thank you. That answers my question.
Thank you, Lindsay. Patrick?
Well, it's been such a long time since I played a policeman, I've forgotten how their minds work. But I've been playing lots of... I've been playing lots of lovers lately. I think I'd be better off asking Lindsay a few questions. But, in fact, I will ask pretty...
Go and ask Mr. Seven. I know about too.
Pretty Crystal over there, if I may. You're 7 years old?
Yes.
Good job she's sitting over there. I might get arrested.
No,
Can I just ask you...
cannot.
Can I just ask you something about this? Whereabouts does the action take place here?
Well, it's in London.
In London. I see that Big Ben is out of the window all the time, and it just says 7:15, yet there's clocks being shown at sort of 28 and 26.
Well, it's stopped, you see, because...
Can I answer that for Crystal? Because as soon as the Chinese took over, we kill all the time. And we don't want them to know the time.
Yeah, well, there we are. That's the buzzer for the first replay. And this is yours, Lindsay, your flashback. You would like to see the bit where Anagram says that has Dad gone yet, referring to his holiday, of course, not to his death. Well, here it is. I hope it helps you.
Has Dad gone yet?
You just missed it. He's on his way. Look at his face.
No, God help me!
Darling.
Switch off!
Our husband is dead.
There, the whole whole thing is now abundantly clear to you.
Yes. Anagram. I noticed you were playing with someone's balls when you came in. Are those
not
something that you carry around with you?
Maybe at this precise minute have a picture of what the gentleman is holding there.
They're not someone's, they're mine.
Clarify the situation.
Okay, all right. Is there some reason you feel that you must carry them around where everyone can see them?
Well, you've probably noticed that we all have what we might call toys. This is because life has become pretty boring on the whole. And we need something to distract us all the time. I mean, we've lived for 70 years, 80 years, 100 years altogether, with very little change. And so
now,
we need
you've
something
chosen that as yours. Do you feel a sense of competition with your father by any means in the structure of the family?
I find that a very deeply personal question, which...
I'm sorry, but this is a very important thing. I mean, your father's life was on the line here.
Well, obviously, yes, and therefore I feel I should answer it. Obviously, I did feel some sense of competition with my father. And not a deep competition. I mean, I think inevitably, because he is the power in the house, and he was a very respected man, quite a well-known man, a very talented person, I think inevitably we felt slightly overshadowed by him.
So.
But he likes him.
So, okay.
Right. Thank you, Lindsay. Patrick.
Oh, well, I would like to ask number 7. Where is he? Number 7. Is he switched on?
Yes. Yes, he is programmed to reply.
Number 7.
What's your hand doing, number 7?
Can I ask you, number 7, when the life force that you gave to the dead man, somebody said at the end that it could, in fact, have killed him, that life force power. Is that true?
This I am not programmed to answer. At that time, it was taken out of my hands by the man who does most of the electronics in our establishment, and that was Anagram. He controlled me at the time. This is all I remember.
But if you had been... if somebody wanted to kill this guy, okay, you saved him with your life force, but it was said, I think by Anagram or Poe, that in fact if the life force had been too strong, then that alone would have killed him, not the tiger. Is that true?
This is so.
Thank you very much.
There we go.
Was
well
that
timed.
number 7, or is that...
No, that was not Mr. 7, no. That was ready for Dr. Pike's replay. So I'm not surprised that you want to see the back of the robot's head removed. I'm sure from those tangled wires you can see if it's been tampered with. Well, here it is. Have a look and see if it helps you. The green one is the Earth.
7, go remote.
What the hell are you doing?
I'm going to reroute 7's life force through Father. It's our only hope. 7, put your hand on Mr. Wendell's heart.
No, call the resuscitation centre. If his brain's not dead, you'll destroy him.
There's no time.
Go on, shoot, yes.
Shoot! Oh, no, we don't do that in the whatever it is. Let me see now. Do I want to talk to Crystal? No, I don't, because I can believe in Crystal. Girls are maturing younger, and by that time they may be on the go at 7.
Yes.
But it's the food thing that I can't swallow, because it'll never happen like that, folks. You can't have a pill of haddock. I'd like to talk to Anagram. Where are you?
I'm over here.
Yes, thanks. Were you very anxious to get a flat of your own?
Well, I think we're all very anxious to get a flat of our own, but it's extremely difficult. Flats are allocated, and the allocation process takes an incredibly long time.
Now, you're friendly with your brother Poe.
Yes.
Now, Mr. Poe, sir, I want you to ask me a question. Why did your dad call you Poe when you were born? He wasn't doing the crossword puzzle then. Now...
Well, I hardly like to say.
Well, do say, please. I mean, we've got an important inquiry going on here.
I think perhaps the letters stand for something.
Yeah, well, what do they stand for? Let's not have any shilly-shallying.
Paul has just suggested what they stand for.
What's that? I beg pardon?
Post office. He might have been posting a letter.
Post office, yes. I was thinking some way of saying go away, but... yes. Right. Question.
Yes.
Paul.
The pet Dalek, Mr. 7. Do you die in any conventional sense when your life force is removed?
I do not remember because I am not programmed to remember death, only to remember living things and things that I am asked to perform.
Well, you looked rather ill after transferring your life force to, the murdered man.
To Dad.
Mr. Wendell.
This is because I had, after that explosion, a bionic headache.
How do your eyes feel? Do they roll a lot?
Yes, Patrick.
Can I ask Mr. Lim? You were accused earlier on by one of the brothers, they're identical twins, they don't look it, but it's very confusing, I can't remember which one it did, said that they thought that there was a plot by the Chinese to get rid of Dad, right? You'd brought Mr. Sung in to get rid of Dad. But surely in 2076, wherever we are, you would have had far better means of getting rid of this guy, wouldn't you, if you wanted to?
No, in fact, Mr. Wendell was a very privileged person because he was one of very few to own a unit like that. I mean, even to own a room is extremely difficult.
But surely you could have sort of exterminated him if you wanted to get rid of him, couldn't you?
No, I always thought that he could assist me.
Yes.
Instead of that, he did a lot of writing and broadcasting against our government.
But what you're saying really is that you wouldn't have a motive to get rid of him.
No.
There, I'm sorry, we're ready for the next replay, which is yours, Patrick. Actually, it's for some reason that you asked to see a replay of Poe going out to call a friend to invite him to a museum. What that has to do with his father's death, I can't think, but here it is.
We've still got the tapes.
Will you excuse me a moment?
Yes?
I've just remembered I must make a picture call to John.
Yes, of course.
I drew a lucky museum ticket for next week.
Excuse the interruption, but if Mr. Seven is free to serve dinner, my guest and I are hungry.
Yes. Poe, you're, I believe, 70, is that right?
Yes.
And are you single?
Yes.
And is that colour of your hair your own choosing?
We all have the same colour hair.
Does your friend John have the same colour hair? I just wondered why you had to go and see this friend John at that particular moment when when they were being called up. You happened to be away at the period of time when some sort of happening could have happened. I will inform you more of that later.
I think it's a well-timed buzzer, that one. Yes, Paul, this is your replay. You asked to see Mr. Seven serving the two Oriental gentlemen. But I warn you that Haddock Monte Carlo, number 29, on the Chinese menu is not a clue.
Mr. Song.
At your service, sir.
What gastronomic delight have you in store for us?
On the Chinese menu, I have portions of 69, 21, 17, and 13.
And what is that?
Haddock Monte Carlo, or duck à l'orange, new potatoes and broccoli.
Haddock.
Yes, Paul.
Could I ask a question?
Of course.
That's got no connection with that.
Ah, no. Carry on.
Poe. I believe it was you who ripped the label off the tape.
Yes.
Was the small label on the tape, did you notice? Or just the larger label?
I couldn't see what was underneath it. It had been scrubbed over, except that it made some reference to a tiger.
I mean, the small label there, as you can see on the edge.
No, that wasn't where I didn't peel the label off the cover. I peeled the label off the actual tape, which was inside it.
I see. Right. Thank you.
Yes, Patrick.
I'd like to ask Amber, sitting there very quietly, what are you playing with? That's not really what I want to ask you. What are you playing with?
It's a magnetic toy. Help to meditation.
One of the toys that you play with all the time. When Mr. Seven, or number 7, was asked who would be in line of inheritance, we were informed that the 2 brothers would have to die first and then the 2 wives. Is that correct?
Yes, entirely male.
Yeah.
Male-dominated society.
You see, if we assume that everyone's telling the truth, your wife-in-law, whatever she's called, Jade, actually came in at the beginning of the play we saw and said, can I try and persuade you, Mr. Wendell, not to go on the trip to Mallorca where he was going?
I persuaded him. I tried to persuade him.
You tried to persuade him?
I tried to persuade him not to go.
J'accuse the wrong one.
Indeed.
Lindsay, you look as if you're raring to go with some questions
Yes,
here.
because also she said you went there last year, not to please, perhaps. Was there any reason you didn't want him to go back there again?
No reason at all, except I thought since you only can go abroad twice a year, then only for a week, you might as well choose something more interesting.
But that's a personal matter, isn't it?
Entirely, and indeed he settled it that way.
I see.
He exercised his own will.
Mr. Seven, when Daddy asked you to go pick up the tape from Mallorca, it seemed to be, if I remember correctly on the tape, the only one that didn't have a label. How did you know which one it was?
I did not know which one it was. I am only programmed to take out a tape and put it in the machine. I cannot read.
Magnus, have you got a question?
No, I know who did it now.
Oh, you do?
I don't know.
My goodness me, Magnus is going to look damn stupid. Yes, Patrick.
I'd like to ask number 7 another question, please. Getting back to who is allowed to give you, which members of this party do you obey?
All members of immediate family are able to give me instructions or ask questions.
What about house guests?
Yeah, if somebody tells you to go remote, right, you go remote.
That is correct.
But if somebody who's not in the family tells you to go remote, would you go remote?
They would have to have the special knowledge that the family have in controlling me.
Ah. Mm-hmm.
Paul, what would you like?
Mr. Sung, what would be the effect of speeding up Mr. Seven?
Well, any minute, few minutes if you're an expert person, as Mr. Anagram says, in 10 minutes or 5 minutes.
What would be the effect? If you speeded up his time scale, would he work quicker?
Not necessarily. Depends on what you want to speed him for.
But if you sped him up so that he went through 10 minutes,
yes,
while the rest of the world went through 1 minute, could he work much quicker?
Could be. Depend on how I...
Buzz, buzz, buzz. There he goes. That's the end of question time. I'm afraid that's all we've got time for. But while I collect the cards, here's a flashback for you at home, which may help you solve the mystery at the 11th hour. Now, it's just for you at home. It won't be seen here in the studio.
Bye. Mallorca tape, please, Mr. Seven. Ah, Mallorca. Sun, sea breezes, peace and quiet. Ultraviolet 3.
Right. I wonder if that was a help to you. Okay, panel, let's have your cards, please. Thank you, Paul. Bloodhound. I always used to do that to him. Thank you, Lindsay. Whoops. Thank you, Magnus. Good. Right, I've got your cards, so you can't change your mind when you hear what your next-door neighbour says. Magnus, whodunnit? And clues, please.
Yes. It was the butler. It's always the butler. That is number 7. But he wasn't a free agent because it was Anagram who made him do it. And I think he made him do it when he took off the back of his head and twiddled it round, and he never put it straight again, so the next time the thing came out, he was all adrift and all the numbers went wrong and so on and so on. But I'm also deeply suspicious of his twin brother, Poe. So that's my selection.
Good. I'm very glad to hear you held up 3 fingers at me there. I thought that wasn't a significant gesture. Lindsay.
Okay. I feel that it was... I kind of feel that you're right in the first part.
Of course I'm right.
Yeah. In the first part, only in the first part.
Yes, Lindsay.
However, I feel that he was perhaps, if one could say programmed or reprogrammed, which I know a great deal about being someone who is capable of that myself, that it had to have been Mr. Sung and Mr. Lim. Because, well, first of all, Mr. Sung has, in this particular story, really no other reason to be here. And other than to perhaps a decoy on the plot to perhaps put a question between Mr. Anagram and himself, you see, because they're both electronic geniuses. Now, and then Mr. Anagram said something about the political reasons. I'm inclined to agree with that because of my conditioning from my show.
Right, is that it? Thank you.
Well, that's the gist.
Patrick Mower.
Well, I think that it was Mr. Sung and Mr. Anagram who programmed the computer man number 7 to do it, because Mr. Sung knew all about electronics, and he flashed him back 10 minutes or something in time, so that he programmed him to forget the time, and the other guy was next in line. The next thing that would have happened was Poe is going to get bumped off.
Right. Paul.
Well, I think it was Anagram who reprogrammed Mr. 7. I think he made him work faster so that he could go to the travel room, change the labels on the tape, and return to where the meal was being eaten in a reasonable time. He also used the sticky tape, which I believe was found in Anagram's workshop.
Thank you, Paul. That is very, very interesting. Let us see if they are right. So, now, will the real Whodunnit stand up, please?
Destruct.
Well, that is marvelous news. Lindsay Wagner, you got it right. Dead on. She got the right one who did it, and she got the right associates. Dr. Magnus Pike, who said, "Oh, well, I know who did it," got it wrong.
I got the butler.
You got the butler.
Yes, I got the butler.
Pat, the bloodhound himself, once again, got it sort of right, but not 100%. Congratulations, Lindsay. Last week, as you know, George Savalas got it right from the United States, so this is great. Our visitors from the United States seem to be bang on at getting the game in one. Wow. Thank you all. Thank you, Paul. Well, did you solve it at home? Mr. 7, the robot, switched the tapes. Mr. Lim and Mr. Sung reprogrammed the robot to lie, but they made several mistakes. Now, you'll notice that the glasses are empty and the chessboard has very few pieces on it. Only a minute earlier, the glasses were full, and all the pieces were still on the boards. Also, Mr. 7 made the mistake, or rather was incorrectly programmed, in selecting the Mallorca tape. Now, how did you know it was the Mallorca tape when the label wasn't visible? He must have known where it was on the rack. And the motive? Well, the cunning Chinese wanted to get rid of Mr. Wendell for his reactionary views expressed in his newspaper. And next week, we shall be back in the present again when our panel will include Terry Scott, the lovely Anouska Hempel, and from the new series of The Avengers, Gareth Hunt. Do join us. Good night.